Hello guys, welcome back to the Rant Fangirl channel. I am your girl Asia. Welcome back to my channel. So today I want to make a video about Degrassi because I was on Tumblr last night looking through this page. It's this page that someone has on Tumblr called Degrassi Confessions. Sometimes I look on there to come on here to make some of my topics, and there was one where it was actually two that came across my mind. But the other one that came across my mind, I'm just gonna add that into the Maya one because it has a lot to do with her character. So I'm just gonna add that into my Maya video, my Maya part two rant on why I really don't understand why a lot of people in the Degrassi fandom really look at her as a villain. And I'm gonna get into that because I think some of y'all really don't understand Maya. So we're gonna get into all of that. But I wanted to come on here and talk and just address some of the things that she said. I have the post right here on my phone, so we're gonna go ahead and just look at what she said so I can comment. Okay. She said Degrassi needs to start talking about issues that don't involve relationships that people can relate to, like eating disorders or mental disorders, loneliness and depression, bad grades, and insecurities. One thing I could give her is that I do agree. Once we reached that newer era for Degrassi, a lot did change. And if y'all watch some of the promos for Degrassi, like for season 10 and up, you can tell there was a change. Honestly, one thing I'm getting sick and tired of is that everyone is blaming the new generation for it not discussing newer like issues. I'm gonna tell y'all right now that all started in the season 8 and 9 era, because give me one important storyline from season 8 and 9 that you can really remember other than who was dating who was sleeping with who. The only storyline in season 8 that I can remember that they addressed was Jane when it came to her being sexually molested by her father as a child. That's the only important storyline I can really think of in season 8. And I was actually glad that Degrassi did that because that was something different. Because I think a lot of people tend to forget that that is also something that children go through. So I was really happy that Degrassi did that. That is the only important storyline I could think of in season 8. Other than that, that whole season was wrapped around who was dating who was sleeping with who. Same thing in season 9. Who's sleeping with who dating who taking who's nigga, who's taking who's bitch. It's like everyone likes to blame season 10 through 14 for it not doing important storylines. Well, honestly, in season 12, actually, in season 10, there were like two important storylines. Actually, three important storylines I can think of that they really did. The first one was domestic violence with Fiona. The other one was alcohol abuse with Fiona. The other one was transphobia with Adam's character. You know, his school being very transphobic, not allowing him to be who he is because they don't believe him being trans. There was in scenes in Adam's episodes, part 1 and part 2, My Body is a Cage, where you can see him burning his skin because he has to pretend to be someone he's not to please everyone else. Everyone wants him to be Gracie when that is in the past. He's no longer Gracie, he is Adam. Because he had to pretend to be a girl, he never was happy, so that involved him hurting himself. Those were like the three main important storylines I can think of that they really addressed in season 10. But other than that, for the most part, it was really about who's dating who's sleeping with who. I mean, I can't say the pregnancy storyline with Jenna. That was really important, but they didn't write it like it was important. What I mean, like, they didn't really, like, up until season 11, they showed you how being a mother in high school can be very, very hard. So, you know what? I take that back. In season 10, I would say in season 10, that storyline got a little overshadowed because of the Eli and Claire shit. But in season 11, they gave it the proper screen time that it truly fucking deserved, which I also love. What I can say though, and also in season 10 with Eli, I think him being in a relationship with Claire, it triggered him, like all the things he's going to do right this time and everything like that. But it just involved him in doing the same old cycle, you know, the hoarding, the clinginess. Doesn't really want to give Claire any space, wants to do everything together, constantly in her space, doesn't believe in personal space. it was just like it was like he was triggered. Like, okay, he blamed himself for his girlfriend's death, so he promised himself whatever relationship he hops into next, he's not going to do the same old thing. His mental wasn't okay, but that wasn't really something they really addressed in season 10 up until season 11. Season 11, for the most part, did have some important storylines. You had Drew's PTSD storyline. Um, Eli's bipolar disorder storyline was addressed in there. What was also a storyline that they did in season 10 that was, I mean, in season 11 that was important. Oh, they did a JC and Kenna story, JC and the KC and Jenna storyline, excuse me. They also did that. I actually feel like that was the best storyline in season 11. They also did do the whole gang violence thing with Drew. I enjoyed that too, but I feel like after after the first two episodes with him and Bianca, and I think that other episode where she slept with Vince, they kind of put that storyline on the back burner. And I don't think it was brought up again up until Drew PTSD again. And then when when Bianca was coming back to school and she showed Drew the bruises, that's when they picked it back up and showing, gang violence and things like that. So that was also a good storyline to me. Very important. Showing gang violence and stuff like that, because it does happen. But I think the best storyline in season 11 to me for Degrassi was hands down the Casey and Jenna storyline, because I really liked the Casey and Jenna storyline. I liked that it showed the realism of being teenage parents and how hard it can be. Neither Casey or Jenna were ready to be parents. They didn't want to be parents. I think they thought once they became parents in high school, they probably didn't think their lives were going to change. They probably thought that they were still going to be able to do the same old stuff while still having a baby. While Casey, he didn't give up anything. Jenna had to give up a lot of sacrifices. He didn't like being a father. And I always tell people, like, when I first watched that storyline, it always broke my heart that they gave the baby up for their selfish reasons. But when I go back and rewatch it, they did the right thing by giving the baby up. I don't think the baby should have been in an unhappy home with two parents who were not ready and didn't want to be parents. And I like that they showed that Jenna was very depressed. She felt isolated and distant from the world. She really wanted to go back to just being a high school girl. She did not want to be a mother. I thought that storyline was pretty good. I thought it was very phenomenal. Very excellent writing. There's really nothing bad I can really say about season 11's storylines. If you were not a character I didn't care about, I didn't give a fuck about your episodes, I didn't give a fuck about your storylines. But what I'm trying to get to is that there were some important storylines that Degrassi did do in some seasons, but for the most part, it really was who was dating who was sleeping with who. I can definitely get where she's coming from. Did I miss those important episodes in the newer generation for Degrassi? Yeah, because I feel like Degrassi, to me, was like showing what teenagers go through that people or adults or parents might think they not go through. I always felt like, if there were storylines I wish Degrassi would have done, I wish they would have done more like sexual diseases like STDs or HIVs. I feel like they never really did like, sexual diseases or like that. I mean, I guess you could say in Degrassi Next class when Tristan got chlamydia, but how did Tristan get a sexual transmitted disease if he haven't had sex? That makes no sense. Did y'all ever realize that in Degrassi Next class, when he said he got chlamydia, he said he has a sexually transmitted disease and he hasn't had sex yet? That makes no sense. I'm confused, and I might be wrong. Do you get chlamydia for not having like intercourse sex? Can you get it if someone goes down on you? Like, can someone explain that to me? Because I was taught in health class you get it from intercourse sex. You get syphilis if you go down on someone. So make it make sense. There were just storylines they wrote that was just pretty ridiculous. I thought that was ridiculous. I really did wish sometimes they would have did storylines like with STD and HIV, but they didn't. As far as insecurities, they did insecurities sometimes. They did focus a lot on mental a lot in Degrassi. more in the OG era than they did in the newer era. There were some times in the newer era where they focused on the mental, like with Drew PTSD and some with Miles and with Eli. But for the most part, oh, and with Cam, they did focus on the mental. They did do depression storylines. Honestly, to me, I think season 12 was like the peak era for Degrassi. I think that was like the last season where they did do like important storylines. You had Cam's suicide, you had Cam's depression, you had Maya dealing with it, and things like that. I feel like that was like the last good season. Not the last. Season 12 and 13 were like the last good seasons for Degrassi because season 14 completely sucks. But to me, I feel like season 12 was like its peak to where, okay, this was going to be the last season where they did important storylines because in season 13, there wasn't any. And in season 14, the only storyline I could think of that they did that was important was the whole Miles getting abused by his father emotionally, and then I guess the Claire pregnancy storyline, her having to deal with a stillborn. That's, women do go through that. So there were some important storylines that Degrassi wrote, but not a whole lot. In season 13, they did do a sexually assault storyline with Zoe, which I truly, truly do love. That was a really good episode. She has the best sexual assault storyline in the entire show. I love hers a lot, and I always loved that she got justice. As far as the whole teacher predator thing in season 13, let's be real. Degrassi has never took any of the predator shit like really seriously. Like in season 10, when Connor, excuse me, was talking to a woman online, and she came to the school and she basically tried to sexually touch him. Where was the justice? I'm not understanding. Where was the justice? When Principal Simpson knew who the woman was, why the fuck is she not locked up? Same thing with Paige and whatever his name was. Why the fuck was he not locked up? At the end of the episode, he should be in the orange jumpsuit. There should be no way him and Paige was still dating. Get the fuck out of here. And then with the whole Tristan and his teacher thing, I don't know why the fuck Mr. Simpson didn't lock him up. There's no way in hell a student would just come to you and tell you, oh yeah, this teacher is sleeping with his student for the fun of it. Instead, he got suspended or fired. Bitch, no, he should be locked up. He thought fooling around with a student was okay. Get the fuck out of here. Like, why was he locked up? So as far as them storylines are concerned, teacher and student, like with the Sav and Miss O shit, none of those storylines were taken under consideration. And for Allie to know that Miss O and Sav had a relationship and she was still working here in the school, that is a problem. She should be nowhere near children, especially if she thought being with a child in Degrassi was okay. Like, we got so many predators and sex offenders in this school. No one is getting locked up. No one is in an orange jumpsuit. Like, what's going on? So I feel like that Degrassi was very horrible in that era, locking people up who were predators. As far as it focusing on the students and their mental, I thought they always did a good job. For the newer generation, I definitely agree. A lot of it was all about who's dating who's sleeping with who. And I just didn't give a fuck about that. I mean, yes, I like mess. Yes, I like drama. But sometimes I wish it didn't just come from relationships where in the new generation, that's where most of it came from. You got most of the betrayals, backstabbing, and secrets from relationships. Then you got it more from, oh, this individual character's mental state. Like, and honestly, I really blame season 13 for that because season 12, it wasn't really any of that. Season 12 wasn't no backstabbing, who's sleeping with who, except for the Katie, Drew, and Bianca storyline. Season 13 started the whole who's sleeping with who bullshit. Like, the only storyline in season 13 I really liked was the love triangle for real, with Maya, Zig, and Miles. I liked that Miles and Maya's relationship because it had drama. The Claire and Drew shit did have drama, but again, it's all about relationships. Who's dating with who's sleeping with who. I didn't care about that, you feel me? So I can't agree with her. In the new generation for Degrassi, it stopped, for the most part, stopped being about important storylines and was really more focused on relationships. But I think they were doing what was in the newer era, like for that generation. because you could see in the OG era for Degrassi, they weren't really on the internet posting this, posting that, posting what's on the gram and shit like that. But for the newer generation, you could see they were very heavy on the internet, very heavy on face range with the cyberbullying. So I think they were just doing what's for the newer era, like kids in high school, like being really obsessed with relationships. Because I think when I think of the OG era of Degrassi, I think they did topics and storylines where in that era no one was doing like school shootings. No one was really talking about kids dealing with mental health. No one was really talking about none of that shit for real, for real. So I really like that. Like drug abuse, they didn't do drug abuse anymore in Degrassi up until next class, where Miles had a storyline, which was a great fucking storyline, by the way. So yeah, I can agree with her. Degrassi, the newer generation, did lack important storylines, but I still love the newer generation for Degrassi. I still do, and I think a lot of the Degrassi fandom really do sleep on the newer era for the newer generation for Degrassi. Is it the best? No, but again, I'll still watch it. I will. There are just some seasons I prefer over others. But I just want to come on here and just give up my thoughts and opinions about her post. I will be looking on her channel, on her page, more to see what topics I can come on here and talk about. Please be looking out for my Maya video, because that other topic has a lot to do with her character. I'm going to go really hard on this rant. This is going to be a mega rant, so I need y'all to really listen and pay attention to everything I'm about to say. I'm going to really try this weekend to actually tomorrow I should be uploading my Found season 2 episode 11 review. I know it should never have taken this long for me to put this up. I apologize for the inconvenience, but it will be up tomorrow, and I will do my Breaking Bad video last once I am done talking about my video. See you later, Bookies.